For today's he does this to me. For today's cup of coffee, we're going to be discussing something. On the previous cup, made mention of the Manhattan Project, and it was my mistake. That was where they were working on nuclear weapons, and I got it confused with today's subject, which was the Philadelphia experiment. It's hard to keep up with so many things at a certain point. It's very busy in my brain.
Yeah, I'd say so.
So, anyhow, we have two sources.
Why?
We have two sources,
Busy?
both of which will be in the description box. One is Wikipedia, which is the primary source that I'm going to be using today. And then the other one is from the Naval History and Heritage Command, which is an official U.S. Navy website.
So it's official?
Yeah.
It's official?
It is.
Official?
And it's the Navy Department Library.
Okay.
So there's some interesting things there.
Right.
And we know that the government can always be trusted, don't we? So,
does a leopard need a three-way mirror?
Yeah. Like I said, the primary gist of this is going to be from the Philadelphia experiment. Whoever wrote this was quite good. Mm-hmm. And so, of course, we will ponder in amongst all this stuff. And the Philadelphia experiment is a conspiracy theory about a military experiment supposed to have been carried out. You got on to me for saying allegedly.
Alleged. My bad.
Carried out by the U.S. Navy at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, United States. Well, that was specific, and that was sometime around October 28th of 1943. And the U.S. Navy destroyer escort USS Eldridge was claimed to have been rendered invisible or cloaked to enemy devices. You're familiar with this, aren't you?
Vaguely.
Okay.
Sort of.
The story originated in late 1955 when an ex-merchant mariner named Carl M. Allen, who claimed to be a witness to the event, sent a book full of handwritten annotations referring to the experiment to a U.S. Navy research organization, and a little later, a series of letters making further claims to a UFO book writer. Allen's account of the event is widely understood to be a hoax. The U.S. Navy maintains that no such experiment was ever conducted, that the details of the story contradict well-established facts about USS Eldridge, and that the alleged claims go against the laws of physics.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, well, we found out yesterday as far as reality being real.
Yeah,
right,
totally.
Right. So, the story of the Philadelphia experiment originated in late 1955 when Carl M. Allen sent an anonymous package marked Happy Easter, containing a copy of Morris K. Jessup's book, The Case for the UFO Unidentified Flying Objects, to the U.S. Office of Naval Research. The book was filled with handwritten notes in its margins, written with 3 different shades of blue ink, appearing to detail a debate among 3 individuals, only one of whom is given a name, that of Jimmy. Jemi.
Okay.
They commented on Jessup's ideas about their propulsion for flying saucers, discussed alien races, and expressed concern that Jessup was too close to discovering their technology. The commenters referred to each other as gypsies and discussed 2 different types of people living in outer space. Their texts contained non-standard use of capitalization and punctuation, and detailed a lengthy discussion of the merits of various elements of Jessup's assumptions in the book.
Assumptions.
There were oblique references
right?
to the
Am I correct? Is that right?
to the Philadelphia experiment, and one commentator reassures his fellow annotators who have highlighted a certain theory which Jessup advanced. Now, it's interesting about the use of capitalization and punctuation, and at some point when we discuss the Unabomber, that will come further into play.
Unabomber. Bobbing for apples. The Bobby Maniac.
Oh my God, don't do that. Poor little Ted Kaczynski. Is Ted still alive?
I don't know.
So, weren't you the one that told me that if you wrote to him that he would write you back?
I didn't know that.
Somebody told me that somewhere along the line.
It wasn't me. It was not me.
I was going to credit you with it.
How was I supposed... I'm not taking that credit. I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know shit about shit most of the time.
Because honestly, how cool would it be to write Ted Kaczynski and have a letter back from him?
Yeah.
But that's for another cup.
Yeah.
It says, in January of 1956, Allen began sending a series of letters to Jessup using his given name as well as Carlos Miguel Allende. The first known letter warned Jessup not to investigate the levitation of unidentified flying objects. Allen put forward a story of dangerous science based on unpublished theories by Albert Einstein. He further claimed a scientist named Franklin Reno put these theories into practice at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard in October of 1943. Allen claimed to have witnessed this experiment while serving aboard the SS Andrew Forsyth. Who names a ship that, really? In Allen's account, a destroyer escort was successfully made invisible, but the ship inexplicably teleported to Norfolk, Virginia for several minutes and then reappeared in Philadelphia's yard. The ship's crew was supposed to have suffered various side effects, including insanity, intangibility, and being frozen in place. Intangibility?
We love that. We stand.
When Jessup wrote back requesting more information to corroborate his story, Allen said his memory would have to be recovered and referred Jessup to what seemed to be a non-existent Philadelphia newspaper article that Allen claimed covered the incident. In 1957, Jessup was invited to the Office of Naval Research, where he was shown the annotated copy of his book. Jessup noticed the handwriting of the annotations resembled the letters he received from Allen. 12 years later, Allen would say that he authored all of the annotations in order to, quote, scare the hell out of Jessup, end quote.
I bet that worked.
Well, it's like this. If it were that big, I mean, if it was a ruse big enough for the Office of Naval Research to contact these people, you know? So something was going on, or the higher-ups wouldn't have even paid any attention. It says 2 officers at ONR, which is the Office of Naval Research, Captain Sidney Sherby and Commander George H. Hoover, took a personal interest in the matter. Hoover later explained that his duties as Special Projects Officer required him to investigate many publications and that he ultimately found nothing of substance to the alleged invisibility experiment. Hoover discussed the annotations with Austin N. Stanton, president of Varro Manufacturing Corporation of Garland, Texas, during meetings about Varro's contract work at ONR. I can't imagine if it was that much of bullshit, like I said, that they would have bothered to even look into it.
Right.
So there was something there somewhere. Stanton became so interested that Varro's office began producing mimeographed copies of Jessup's book with the annotations and Allen's letters, first a dozen and eventually 127 copies. These copies came to be known as the Varro edition. Besides noting handwriting of the individual named Jimmy, addressed as such by the others and using blue-violet ink, the anonymous introduction to the Varro edition concludes that there were 2 other individuals making annotations. Mr. A identified Allen by Jessup in blue ink, Mr. B in blue-green ink. This is all cloak and dagger and spy versus spy stuff with this.
Yes.
So
I am confused.
Anyhow,
How dare you?
Jessup tried to publish more books on the subject of UFOs, but was unsuccessful. Losing his publisher and experiencing a succession of downturns in his personal life led him to take his own life in Florida on April 30th of 1959.
Great.
I'd say that he was probably Epstein. Sounds like it to me, because government, sudden downturn in life, sudden urge to, self-harm. Yeah. The various book writers who tried to get more information from Carl Allen found his responses elusive or couldn't find him at all. Well, maybe he didn't want to be Epstein.
Yeah.
And says one reporter from Allen's hometown in New Kensington, Pennsylvania, interviewed his family and was handed a pile of documents and books, all scribbled with Allen's annotations. They described Allen as a fantastic mind, but also a drifter and a master leg puller. Now, maybe they didn't want to be Epstein either.
Yeah.
In 1963, Vincent Gaddis published a book of Fortuna entitled Invisible Horizons, True Mysteries of the Sea. What?
Fortuna.
God help it. In it, he recounted the story of the experiment from the Varro annotations. George E. Simpson and Neil R. Berger published a 1978 novel titled Thin Air. In this book, set in the present day, a Naval Investigative Service officer investigates several threads linking wartime invisibility experiments to a conspiracy involving matter transmission technology. Large-scale popularization of the story came about in 1979 when the author Charles Berlitz, who had written a best-selling book on the Bermuda Triangle, and his co-author, ufologist William L. Moore, published the Philadelphia Experiment Project Invisibility, which purported to be a factual account. The book expanded on stories of bizarre happenings, lost unified field theories by Albert Einstein, and government cover-ups, all based on the Allende-Allen letters to Jessup. Moore and Berlitz devoted one of the last chapters in the Philadelphia Experiment Project Invisibility to the force fields of Townsend Brown, namely the experimenter, then U.S. Navy technician Thomas Townsend Brown. Paul
Townsend Brown.
LaViolette.
That was it. They couldn't have been more creative than that.
Oh, these names are just crazy. Paul LaViolette. If you had a name, would you want it to be LaViolette?
At least it sounds
How about
pretty.
La Daisy, La Rose.
La Rose and La Violet. Those sound good.
I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly. You know that, right?
I don't care.
Anyhow, his 2008 book, Secrets of Anti-Gravity Propulsion, also recounts some mysterious involvement in Townsend Brown. The story was adapted into a 1984 time travel film called The Philadelphia Experiment, directed by Stuart Raphael. I think I saw that at one point. In fact, I'm almost positive that I did. Though only loosely based on the prior accounts of the experiment, it served to dramatize the core elements of the original story. In 1989, Alfred Bielek claimed to have been aboard the USS Eldridge during the experiment. Addressing the MUFON conference in 1990, Bielek asserted that Raphael's film was largely consistent with the events he claimed to have witnessed in 1943. Bielek would later add details to his claims on radio talk shows, conferences, and the internet. And I would almost guarantee that there's probably, someplace on one of these YouTubes or Odysseys or BitChute or something of this guy speaking somewhere. So I will have to search for that.
Yeah.
All right, and this part of the article states that several different and sometimes contradictory versions of the alleged experiment have circulated over the years, and that the following synopsis recounts key story points common to most accounts, which was responsible of the author. It really was.
Yeah.
The experiment was allegedly based on an aspect of some unified field theory, a term coined by Albert Einstein to describe a class of potential theories. Such theories would aim to describe mathematically and physically the interrelated nature of the forces of electromagnetism and gravity. In other words, uniting the respective fields into a single field. It's okay. It doesn't get like yesterday. I promise.
Please don't let it.
According to some accounts, unspecified researchers thought that some version of this field would enable using large electrical generators to bend light around an object via refraction so that the object became completely invisible. It's sort of like the invisibility cloak from Harry Potter, and that they actually are working on that technology.
That's cool.
Yeah, it could be. It's a cloaking device.
Yeah.
The Navy regarded this as of military value and is sponsored, and it sponsored the experiment. Another unattributed version of the story proposes that researchers were preparing magnetic and gravitational measurements of the seafloor to detect anomalies supposedly based on Einstein's attempt to understand gravity. In this version, there were also related secret experiments in Nazi Germany to find anti-gravity. Anti-gravity. What the hell happened to my mouth?
I don't know.
To find anti-gravity, allegedly, allegedly led by SS. I'm not even going to try to help. Hans Kammler, because it's an open group and there's something. Hans Kammler. It is.
Someone get her to a doctor.
No. There are no reliable attributable accounts, but in most accounts of the supposed experiment, USS Eldridge was fitted with the required equipment at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. Testing began in the summer of 1943 and was supposedly successful to a limited extent. One test resulted in Eldridge being rendered nearly invisible, with some witnesses reporting a greenish fog appearing in its place. Crew members complained of severe nausea afterwards. Also reportedly, when the ship reappeared, some sailors were embedded in the metal structures of the ship, including one sailor who ended up on a deck level below than when he began, and his hand embedded in the steel hull of the ship, as well as some sailors who went completely bananas.
No shit.
Yeah. There are also claims that the experiment was altered after the point at the request of the Navy, limiting it to creating a stealth technology that would render USS Eldridge invisible to radar. None of these allegations have been independently substantiated. Okay, so to alter it a little bit so that they didn't have people fused in with the ship hull.
Uh-huh.
It's like, yeah, that didn't work so well, did it?
Yeah, no.
The conjecture then claims that the equipment was not properly recalibrated, but that in spite of this, the experiment was repeated on October the 28th, 1943. This time, Eldridge not only became invisible, but it disappeared from the area in a flash of blue light and teleported to Norfolk, Virginia, over 200 miles away.
Oh, wow.
It is claimed that Eldridge sat for some time in view of men aboard the ship SS Andrew Forsyth, whereupon Eldridge vanished and then reappeared in Philadelphia at the site it had originally occupied. It was also said that the warship went approximately 10 minutes back in time. Well, why not? If you're teleporting, why not mess with the time thing?
Yeah.
Many versions of the tale included descriptions of serious side effects for the crew. Some crew members were said to have been physically fused to bulkheads, while others suffered from mental disorders. Some materialized inside out. They were turned in upon themselves.
Gross.
Yeah, that sounds like one of the Clive Barker, books of blood.
Yeah.
that one's messed me up.
No,
and still others just vanished. It is also claimed that the ship's crew may have been subjected to brainwashing to maintain the secrecy of the experiment. All that's feasible.
Yeah.
Knowing what we know about MK Ultra and some of this other shit that's going on, this stuff is feasible. The historian Mike Dash notes that many authors who publicized the Philadelphia experiment story after that of Jessup appear to have conducted little or no research of their own. Through the late 1970s, for example, Allende/Allen was often described as mysterious and difficult to locate, but Gorman determined Allende-Allen's identity after only a few phone calls. Others speculate that much of the key literature emphasizes dramatic embellishment rather than pertinent research. Berlitz's and Moore's account of the story, The Philadelphia Experiment Project Invisibility, claim to include factual information such as transcripts and an interview with the scientist involved in the experiment, but their work has also been criticized for plagiarizing key story elements from the novel Thin Air, which was published a year earlier. So, and that happens. That can happen from time to time, but, still does not totally discount. And remember, propaganda has been around for a very long time.
Right.
Personnel at the 4th Naval District have suggested that the alleged event was a misunderstanding of routine research during World War II at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. An earlier theory was that the foundation for the apocryphal stories arose from degaussing experiments, which have the effect of making a ship undetectable or invisible to magnetic lines. And degaussing is a process in which a system of electrical cables are installed around the circumference of a ship's hull, running from bow to stern on both sides. This is from the naval site that I went through. A measured electrical current is passed through these cables to conceal out the ship's magnetic field. Degaussing equipment was installed in the hull of Navy ships and could be turned on whenever the ship was in waters that might contain magnetic mines, usually shallow waters in combat areas. It could be said that degaussing correctly done makes a ship invisible to sensors of magnetic mines, but the ship remains visible to the human eye, radar, and underwater listening devices. So it keeps the magnetic mines from blowing shit up.
Yeah.
So, the degaussing system was invented by Canadian Charles F. Goodeve when he held the rank of commander in the Royal Canadian Naval Volunteer Reserve, and the Royal Navy and other navies used it widely during World War II. British ships of the era often included degaussing systems built into the upper decks. The conduits are still visible on the deck of the HMS Belfast in London, for example, and degaussing is still used today. However, it has no effect on visible light or radar. Vallée speculates that accounts of USS Engstrom's degaussing might have been garbled and confabulated in subsequent retellings, and that these accounts may have influenced the story of the Philadelphia experiment. Vallée cites a veteran who served on board the USS Engstrom and who suggests it might have traveled from Philadelphia to Norfolk. You've just totally blown me out of the water on this. And began back again in a single day at a time when merchant ships could not, by use of the Chesapeake and Delaware Canal and Chesapeake Bay, which at the time was open only to naval vessels. Use of that channel was kept quiet. German submarines had ravaged shipping along the East Coast during Operation Drumbeat, and thus military ships unable to protect themselves were secretly moved via canals to avoid the threat. The same veteran claims to be the man that Allende witnessed disappearing at a bar. He claims that when a fight broke out, friendly barmaids whisked him out of the bar before the police arrived because he was underage for drinking. They then covered for him by claiming that he had disappeared. That in itself is bullshit.
Yeah.
Because at that point, as far as being in the war or whatever, okay, maybe 17 years old. I can't remember when the drinking age changed. But if he was, military or whatever, he wasn't going to get in. He was not going to get in trouble for drinking at a bar.
No.
Now that's bigger bullshit than had he just vanished into thin air.
Yeah.
So the fact that he would lie about that. Now we have seen many, many times how the people are involved with military anything.
Yeah.
Lie.
Lie.
to save their own skin, and rightfully so.
Yep. Pretty much.
And we also know that the Germans during World War II were working on some really odd things.
Mm-hmm.
Odd.
Oh, yeah.
And so that we have a lot of people over here that were working on them. So were the Russians.
Mm-hmm.
So do I believe that the Philadelphia experiment could have happened? I think it's just as plausible as anything else. And that in our world today, we have found out that we have been lied to so often. That was the reason for doing the Is Reality Real? Yeah.
Brain breaker.
That one turned out better than I thought it would.
Yeah.
It really did.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Minus all the hiccups in the road there.
Huh?
Minus all the hiccups in the road there figuratively.
Oh, you're right. What, in the reality being real thing?
No, today's reading.
Oh, today's reading is, you just blew me out of the water, and it's like broke the flow of it. And when you have to stop and start and then do retakes, and I can't just edit easily. So I end up sounding like an idiot. And that's okay, because I have idiot days and quite a few of them.
Me too. You live with one. You birthed one.
No, I did not. So let us know what you think about the Philadelphia experiment. If you've got other research and stuff, go on that Naval website. There's one that we're going to do, another theory, barring unforeseen, the next day or so, that also had research from that website.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do I believe that FOIA or anything like that will give you anything significant? No, I think they shred all that shit.
Yeah.
That or it's redacted to the point it's got like one word per page.
Right. I believe that.
I want to have one of those industrial military black markers. I need one of those. Yeah.
That'd be fine.
I think
Don't
kids
sniff
just
it. Don't sniff it.
The old magic markers, they were the best smelling things in the world. They really were. They were wonderful.
You were getting high.
No, I wasn't.
Off fumes.
No, I wasn't. I was a small kid. All small
Were
children.
you back there with the people who also ate the glue?
I knew people who ate glue.
Oh God, that's I knew it.
The one that ate the crayons all the time was your first grade teacher.
And she grew up. She became a teacher.
Yeah. She wanted that. She was addicted to that smell of crayon. It called to her. So
the lady that's the baby head in the purse all the time. Baby doll head. My bad.
I was not huffing the magic markers, but they were good. Anyhow, if you've had experiences with the paranormal, supernatural, encounters with UFOs, aliens, cryptids, any of this degaussing technology and stuff, if you've got local, regional, family, myths, legends, send us an email, cupofcoffeewithscream@gmail.com. And we appreciate everybody for taking the time to listen and know that you're loved. And if you have prayer requests, send those to us, same email address. Mm-hmm. And we'll definitely pray for you, because we got quite a few people that we do that on a daily basis. And just, as a general, which is God help us all, because we all need it right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Well, if you liked this video, don't forget to like, share, comment, and most of all, subscribe and click that little notification button for daily notifications of our daily uploads. Thank you all, and have a good.
You all have a beautiful, blessed day, and we'll see you on the next cup. Bye.
I'm gonna go play Alice Madness Returns.